Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. I'm Conrad Somm from Mockingbird, and I, for the second year in a row, am keeping up with last year's New Year's resolutions.
And I am Gyi Sakalakis from Attorney Sync, and I have been eating a lot of roasted beets recently.
Roasted beets, huh? So, are you eating roasted beets when you were watching March Madness? Is that part of is that part of it?
No, I don't know what came onto this roasted beets thing, but apparently they're really good for you, and so I've incorporated them into my diet.
All right. Do you have a questionably legal but great for building camaraderie March Madness pool going on, Gyi?
I'm in a couple March Madness pools.
Okay.
In fact, our company typically does one, but I don't know if that invitation's gone out yet. So unless we get one,
get cracking.
Next couple hours, we're not going to.
I think I sent you
how
one
about
to
you?
ours. Well, I sent you one to ours, but you didn't reply.
You did?
So.
Oh, I'm sorry. When did you send this?
I'm sure your assistant's assistant is on it.
Maybe it went to my spam with the rest of your emails to me.
Wow. So who's your pick? Who's your pick?
Well,
you have Michigan on top?
Of course.
You got Michigan on top?
In a couple of them, I do. Because I'm the ultimate Michigan homer. And if Michigan's on, they can beat anybody. They're winners of the Big Ten tournament, which was a surprise to me. They're streaky though, they can play with anybody and they can lose to anybody.
Okay.
How about you? Who do you like?
I've got Michigan Duke at the end, and I picked Duke at the end.
Duke's going to be tough out.
Yeah.
All right.
So
in addition,
my brother went to business school at Duke, and I went to business school at Michigan. So it was the perfect final for me if we can make it happen.
Very nice. What else we got?
All right. We are covering the news as usual, and then we're going to do a play of AI in marketing, our conversation with the Lawyerist podcast.
Music.
And welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, teaching you how to promote, market, and make fat stacks for your legal practice. Here on Legal Talk Network.
All right, everybody, welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. Let's hit the news. All right, dear listeners, Gyi and I had a great argument when we were setting up this segment because there's really not a lot of news to talk about. And I tried to throw a bunch of things in there that Gyi rightly said were not material to our listeners and not actionable. So we've cut them because they were garbage. However, we did bring M&A news to you in the past. Google has just made its largest acquisition ever in a cybersecurity firm. And that was a privately held cybersecurity firm. And that is a pretty fine payday, Gyi. What else is going on in the very quiet world of legal marketing news?
Oh, what else is going on here? Joy brought to our attention that there were some interesting data anomalies going on in Search Console, particularly around the term lawyer. You saw that. You said you saw that across the board. I saw it in some of our data. What did Joy find, and what did we see?
So it's data out of Google Search Console, and it is an increase in click-to rate because there's no commensurate increase in impressions. And we saw this. We ran all of our clients. We saw this fairly dramatically across 72% of our clients, frequently in the PI world, and often including things around location, as well as branded terms. And so we saw it quite significantly. What do you think this means, Gyi?
Well, it could mean a lot of things. As we talked, and we're going to turn this into a segment, which we said we weren't going to do, but here we are.
Very short segment, non-segment, really quick.
My initial reaction is that it's either some kind of data anomaly related to bots or tools or some kind of some manipulation, or there's something changed, at least in some of the SERPs that these this data is reporting on, that would cause some kind of increased click-through rate. But looking at the SERPs, the corresponding SERPs of some of these, it doesn't look like much has changed there. So I tend to think of it as either anomaly or tool manipulation. It could be some kind of massive CTR manipulation scheme.
Massive bot,
I don't know.
right?
Massive bot.
Yep. Which would be fascinating. In the spirit of giving you actionable insight and information and things that you can actually use, the only thing I can give you on this one is if your agency all of a sudden is claiming that they're doing a much better job and they're using Google Search Console click-through data to prove that to you, I would be a little suspicious. Okay, Gyi, next time we record, you are going to be in Chicago with your good friends at ABA's Tech Show, and I am going to be down in Las Vegas at Mass Torts Made Perfect. What are you talking about at Tech Show?
Well, the two different conversations. The first is the future of legal SEO beyond keywords and backlinks. Tanner Jones of ConsultWebs and I will be talking about that. And then we're also talking about holding marketing investments accountable. That will be multi-channel attribution and having conversations about how to, hold that money and time that you spend on marketing accountable. So if you're in Chicago and you're a Lunch Hour Legal Marketing listener, please say hello. Same with if you're at MTMP, say hello to Conrad.
Come find me at MTMP. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I am doing, I often recycle some of my talks, or at least update existing things. I've got a brand new deck, brand new data, all new. You heard it here first. So I'm going to do this at PILMA later in April, I think the end of April and early May. And I'm also doing an MTMP at the beginning of May. And this is 15 graphs digital marketing agencies don't want you to see. The dirty, underhanded side of what we do.
I imagine they go down to the right.
Well, it depends what you're looking at. That's the whole point.
Right.
Lots of things go up and to the right, and it doesn't make a damn difference. You already know this.
And then you and I will be doing a website teardown at InfoTrack's Legal Up.
So if you are attending
virtual
Legal
conference,
Up and you would like Gyi and me to rip apart your digital marketing efforts, ping us, and we'll set you up for a thorough audit in public.
Or you can submit your competitor. We're happy to tear down your competitors if you're not brave enough to have your own torn apart. And then maybe
you mean if you think your competitor is doing a bunch of shady crap and you want us to publicly expose that? Is that what you're suggesting, Gyi?
No, or they're doing something awesome and you want to try to understand, reverse engineer what they're doing.
Great. I like your positivity there. And the punchline on that will be Gyi and I will tell you that you don't have the same assets and therefore you shouldn't just copy exactly what they're doing because it's not going to work for you.
And in fact, if you're watching this episode on YouTube, please do like and subscribe, but also drop your competitor URL in the comments and maybe we will use it for our teardown. Let's keep the conversation going on YouTube. You're about to hear our conversation with Zack from Lawyerist. And after that, we encourage you to also go check out more episodes from the Lawyerist podcast. It's a great podcast. We're really, really grateful that they invited us to join them, and they've got a lot of great episodes over there, so check them out. Conrad, what did you, Zack, and I talk about?
Well, I think this is a really important conversation, and I'm glad to bring it to this audience as well. So many times people think about AI as being content generation. And we've gone from, just copy, and we're now doing video, content, images, etc. And that's always kind of been the focus of the digital marketing crowd's conversation. But you're completely missing the point because AI is so much more than that. And there is a lot of intelligence that goes into what you can get out of AI. And so our focus deliberately was not on content creation, regardless of the medium, but really what can we do with AI beyond content creation? And it's awesome.
Stay tuned. Here we go.
Gyi, Conrad, thanks for being with me. I'm Zack, host of the Lawyerist podcast. Let's jump into this thing. We're talking AI and marketing, guys, right?
As is everyone else.
Everybody thinks it's like you're doing it, but as a replacement, like I don't have to do it anymore. Right. So, and this is something that Conrad and I are always talking about is, people interpret this promise of AI as, oh, great, I don't have to write anything anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a huge liability because, at least this is my lens on, then I'll let Conrad talk about it. If I can't tell, like if you're using AI and I can't tell, I guess so be it. But guess what? Most of us can tell. And it's the opposite of marketing because everybody else is doing it. You're not standing out. You're not telling your own stories. There's no authenticity to it. And it becomes much more of a liability. And the funny thing for me is this is no different than when people were buying human written content at scale. It's the same problem. It's not very good.
That's a good point of like, I don't want to get somebody that doesn't know anything about my practice, my area of practice to just write what would essentially kind of be random blog posts for me.
Yeah, I mean the blog posts are a great example. The FindLaw sold blog posts for years and years. I don't know how many tens of thousands of inane blog posts that they wrote.
Did they sponsor this podcast?
Oh,
they
yeah,
do not.
Sorry.
They
okay, good.
They do not, and they really won't after this. But no,
that's the problem.
Not.
We kind of torch sponsorships on occasion.
Who are the sponsors? We better be careful.
We need a list of people we shouldn't mention. We think about when I remember when ChatGPT came out, it was very much a copy focused, and by copy I mean content, written content, a copy focused experience. And Gyi's right. Like now we can generate a whole bunch of words and a whole bunch of page count, which may or may not do well from an SEO perspective, but it is no longer a competitive advantage. You used to have a really strong, backlink profile and a really large website, and you could start, by large, I mean page count perspective, you could start winning those long tail keywords, right? And that was a strategy that lived around for a very long time. The cost of developing content at this point in time, mundane, inane, or accurate has really, really fundamentally dropped. So that is no longer a, distinguishing characteristic. I think for me, the interesting what's happening tomorrow, it's actually happening today, but what's really happening tomorrow is we've spent a lot of time with lawyers building video content, right? And genuine, not the kind of overproduced hype videos, but like this is me talking about why St. Patrick's Day is important in my little town, and I'm at the Irish, restaurant kind of thing.
Yeah,
I love that stuff. That can now be done with AI, right? And that is happening. It is very real, and it is very difficult to distinguish that. And
as long as we can't tell.
As long as you can't tell, but like there's so much stuff out there that looks very, very real. You've seen this if you have a Facebook account. That's not, right? And we've got deep fakes, and like this is a very real thing. The thing, and I want to move off of the content because it's not that interesting. But how does human behavior change now that we no longer have any faith in the content that we are consuming? Is that actually genuine? Is it AI generated? That will become fascinating. That's a fundamental shift in user behavior that will have an impact on how lawyers market their firms.
Yeah, because it gets into authenticity. So Gyi's
take is the authenticity of this is so important. So a couple things happen behind that. One, you have to have a voice and a perspective, and it has to be about you. Doesn't mean you can't train. You should spend as much time training AI on your voice, right? Maybe more time training AI on your voice than anything else. However, go ahead.
Good. No, I was gonna take your St. Patrick's Day Irish restaurant example.
Yeah.
So, and again, to your point, you can build your own. I guess it's still a GPT, right? Even if it's doing video, just different modality. So you train your GPT. It's your voice. Maybe you share some of your personal experiences in there, so that you're getting this video that's you talking about how important the St. Patrick's Day and this restaurant is to your local community. If you do all that, how much time did it really save you? If you're actually like telling the story about your local community and the history of this restaurant and all these times that you went there as a kid and yada yada yada, why don't you just record that? Did you really need AI for that?
So I look at doing this at scale. Let's say
right.
I'll use some.
What's the scale version?
No,
the scale version is not going to sound like that, right? Does it? Does the scale version tell all the nuances of your childhood story and trips to the restaurant?
So this is okay.
I used to get emotional when so and so used to come and serve you your Irish food.
To your point, my ability to fake authenticity and the background of every single restaurant, doing it as video content that is indistinguishable from actually shooting it, that is a fundamental shift. Right
now, another issue for you. Another issue for you. Let's say that you didn't actually go to this restaurant. Now you got false and misleading.
No, this is my point. This is exactly my point.
You're running to follow the rules of professional conduct because you're a big dirty liar.
Gyi always comes back to ethics, and because I didn't go to law school and I'm just a marketer, I have no ethics. That's where we go. But if here's my point: if you have to rely on the ethics argument.
I'm not. I think ultimately, I think that the GPT is going to get really good at faking it.
Yes.
It already is.
It's already really good.
However, because we're all going to come to the table assuming everybody's faking this dead internet theory, people are going to be like, if you can stand out, if you can find ways to create content that distinguishes you from the generic, that's the stuff that will stick with people. It's just going to raise the bar on what becomes authentic. I'm not saying look, we know that people are faking it now. I know that I'm probably interacting on LinkedIn I'm interacting with AI generated posts on LinkedIn.
100%.
A lot of sometimes I don't know. A lot of times I do and I play along. And again, my whole thing is that even people I know, when I know that they're doing that, I'm less inclined to subscribe, engage, talk, because I know it's a bot.
So I think you're getting at something there is what is our end goal of this thing every time? Like what's the end or of whatever you put out from a marketing standpoint? If artificial intelligence can help you get the end goal, which is like and subscribe, get somebody to call you, we still need to track these numbers. But if I'm using AI and just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what'll stick, and it's not moving up any of my marketing KPIs, it's worthless.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I take exception with the assumption that it's not moving your KPIs.
Oh, I mean, if it is moving the KPIs, then that's great.
Yeah.
If AI created content is making people call me, even if it's unauthentic, which I think the argument is that it's not going to necessarily, but if it's getting people to call me and it's getting people in my door, then it's good for me.
And we know this is happening because we are talking to law firms who are getting clients from ChatGPT, from AIOs, right? Like that is a thing that is happening. And is that a ton of it right now?
This is a great distinction though, because, and this is what I was going to also suggest. If societally we start accepting that there's a certain context of content that we're going to receive knowing that it's AI, it's not trying to trick us, and that goes away. So you're not going to ChatGPT thinking I'm talking to the lawyer.
Yeah, that's right.
The issue is the deception. When you feel like you're being deceived, you don't like it. Now, if I've got a chat bot on my website that says, "Hey, I'm Gyi bot," and I answer some questions, maybe I do some scheduling stuff, no one feels misled by that. If I post on LinkedIn saying intending that this is coming from me and it feels fake, that's the part people don't like. They don't like feeling deceived by it.
But I think that segues into, we're talking about somebody going into ChatGPT and making searches. We're talking about people kind of interacting with the internet differently. How is consumer behavior? How do we, as lawyers who are trying to get our website seen and our website visited and our phones ringing, how do we adjust what we're doing in marketing to account for that?
Conrad, what do you got?
Well, sorry for being a bad guest, but I'll do this twice. I'm taking umbrage with your assumption.
You take that out of every podcast we do.
I love it. I love
but
it.
usually it's just me and you. Usually I can be an asshole to you. Now I'm an asshole as a guest to our host. You need, in your mind, not you, but the listenership needs to realize that our objective is not to get people to our website. Because if that's what we're going to try, you are swimming against the tide of the economics of what make platforms go round. And
what do you mean by that, Conrad?
Yeah. Expand, please.
LinkedIn makes $0 as soon as you go to someone's website. And we've seen this with engagement, right? So you throw a link into your post in LinkedIn and all of a sudden you get much less distribution. And so we play all these stupid games about like linked in the comments below, right?
Yeah.
Shit like that. So we know this. We've known this for years. It just makes sense. I think we need to think about the way different platforms connect to a law firm. And that is not necessarily, not always, but not necessarily through a direct click to the site, right? Which throws all the traditional marketing, attribution, UTM parameters, call rail, all that stuff becomes really, really difficult. So we get hazier about what's actually working because we're losing the kind of granularity that you can get that we had 10 years ago when I knew where every single click to my website came from. And I knew that 99% of the phone calls that came into my law firm were from my website. Right. So that's that is gone. That toothpaste is not going back in the tube.
So I'm going to hit this answer in a slightly different light. So you answered very literally, and I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
The question of clicking through to websites. But if we're going to zoom out a little bit and say, well, how is this stuff impacting consumer behavior from a law firm's perspective in terms of like awareness and affinity and searches for lawyers and that kind of thing? Well, of course, it's dramatically impacting that because we're already seeing ChatGPT and Perplexity and these other technologies showing up in qualitative attribution data. And what we mean by that is that when you ask someone, how did you hear about us, or who do we thank when for referring us, they say, you see right in the CRM, it says ChatGPT. And so my big things here are, and you know, we could spend a whole time talking about the how the LLMs work and the flux and the data sources and all this kind of stuff. Here's my short version. It's not that much different than what we've historically done. Maybe you reprioritize directories. Maybe you do some research in what are the sources, the source sites that the GPT is using for their response to a prompt, and prioritize appearing in those or making sure information's accurate in those. But the truth is, it's kind of a fool's errand because of the flux, you know, and the way that the GPT works. But here's my big thing with all this. All that being, like, you can do all those things that we just said, and we could talk about that. But the thing that's most important to me is the impact on the way that the consumers are engaging with the technology. See, historically, we think of search, we think of keywords, and like people type a keyword in. This is totally different. This is conversational. And so optimizing around keywords or optimizing around queries is really, again, a fool's errand. Like, it's really understanding, and this is still true even in historical marketing things, who your audience is, what are the issues they're dealing with, what questions are they likely to type into one of these prompts, what are the all the different follow-up kind of questions that they might have, what are the refinements on their queries, and making sure that your what you're publishing in the world is responsive to those questions.
So are we losing this kind of like time period? And please don't make fun of me too much if I'm, you know, way behind. We losing this time period where we could really track where, like, we got that minutia.
That's
got that granular stuff. But in my mind, that granular stuff wasn't necessarily like it was kind of a you know, it was there. We looked at it. We used it. We might even use it to drive what we're doing. But really, what we need to be doing is what y'all are saying anyway, which is the actual marketing. The, you know, speaking to people appropriately, trying to figure out where people are coming from. I've seen a lot of people where they'll spend on Google ads because they can track it, when in reality they get their stuff from referrals. But they just never ask, where did you get this? Who referred you? It's easier. It's lazier to go look at that Google Analytics in a way.
Well, and it's in the agencies and the marketing people's self-interest to say that everything's coming from Google pay-per-click, or if they're an SEO person, organic search. And I know Conrad's got a lot of thoughts, and he's building up for a crescendo here. The one thing that I will say, though, in terms of the quantitative data, is look, there are still legal services consumer journeys that are very linear. Search, click, call, hire. That exists. And for those journeys, you should hold those dollars accountable for those linear paths. The issue is not that everything is totally gone. Now, in the context of GPTs, yes, there is no GPT analytics, right? You're not going to get the actual data. However, there's plenty of companies that are working on modeling the same way that a lot of places model for rank tracking. What businesses show up for relevant prompt responses in GPTs. And so that's an indirect measurement or assessment of whether or not you're appearing. Now, we got a long way to go on that, and whether or not that's actually a reliable data source in the long term is still TBD, because again, what I see is this. The flux is the problem. The personalization is the problem. Remember, when you're logged into these GPTs, it's remembering your interactions with them. And so, for example, if I say, give me a list of the best SEO companies for lawyers, and Attorney Sync's not on that list, and I say, hey, this list should include Attorney Sync, guess what happens? Every time I do that from now on, I see Attorney Sync show up in the results when I'm logged in.
So for those of you who are Gyi's clients, and he's convinced you that he's doing a great job with...
Well, it might not show up for them. It might not show up
No.
them.
But so here's the tactic. Here's shitty agent. Sorry, Gyi would not do this. Here's shitty agency. Here's a way to make it look like you're doing a good job. Go teach your clients to train the chat GPTs of the world to recommend their firm, show their sites, and convince your clients that is representative of what is showing up in the rest of the world.
But how different is that than just being like, why don't you search for your firm name from your firm office?
It's the same.
For your non-brand queries.
So this is why Gyi and I have no friends, because
this is why Conrad has to pay to speak now.
I have to pay to speak, and I have a larger litigation budget than most firms, most agencies. No, but this is the problem, right? So it's very easy. These types of shenanigans exist, and it's very easy to convince people that that's how it works. But and to give these kind of false positive success. And it's no different from SEO. It's no different from the people who are taking credit for brand queries and pay-per-click and passing them off as Family Lawyer, Des Moines, Iowa. It's no different than people running GBP and taking credit for the billboard phone call, the billboards that are driving phone calls into this is the same. Gyi's point, and I can't. We should move off of this, but the direct response stuff. Pay-per-click, LSAs, some SEO where you don't have a starting point, you don't have a law firm, you're doing research, you're going to make a purchase today, or at least make the inquiry today. That still represents a massive portion of the market. 60, 70, 80% of the market looks like that, right? Depending on the firm, Gyi's giving me the depending on the firm.
I would say depending on the audience, but yes.
Well, but I mean, if there are plenty of firms, you don't have to have a brand to generate business from the internet.
100%.
Yeah.
You don't.
And it certainly helps.
It helps. And it makes the economics better, blah, 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 blah. We've talked about this ad nauseum. But a huge portion, the AI thing is interesting. It's fascinating. It's a direction. It's a change, blah, blah, blah. If you take your eye off, if you want to dominate your market, go take reassess your ambitions, right? Unless you have a massive, massive budget, because to dominate your market, you need to play in very expensive, high volume, direct response channels. You have to do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's just a part of it. So I don't want I love the AI thing. I love the change. I love the direction. I love these pontifications. But let's not kid ourselves that a huge portion of the market still goes through these trackable direct response things.
Well, let's talk about though something that Gyi was saying in there, which is, what is it your clientele is interested in? What's their path? Are they looking at, local service pack? Are they searching for people on, maps or going to Chat GPT? And you guys said something before we got on about, thinking about AI in marketing in a different way and using AI to help you with that, client journey, kind of like doing what I would consider the meat and potatoes of what you need to do for your marketing.
To me, this is where AI really thrives, is deploying AI against your firm's data. And so whether that's, client data, intake data, acquisition data, marketing data, the AI is really good at identifying patterns and insights that we are not as good at, especially at scale. CallRail, Conrad and I talk about CallRail all the time. CallRail's AI, and I'll let Conrad, because he's deeper on this, go in, but CallRail can provide you insights about the questions, the issues that your audience is facing that can inform you in a way that can help for content creation, but can also help you identify media buying efficiencies. So, this is my biggest thing of all of this, especially if you're talking about media buying in general, is if you're not telling the machines which of the exposure awareness ads that they're showing to their audience are actually turning into qualified consultations and clients for you, you are wasting your time and money, because that is where the machines really shine. And I don't know that you're going to create so much waste, and people, we still see this all the time, where it's like, they're optimizing media to basic conversion pixel firing, and there's just way too much noise in there. And I think that's a place where, like, people don't really realize that AI is actually doing that. But deploying AI on firm data, I think that's the place that it really changes everything.
And I think the key to this is, unfortunately, you have to have enough data to make sense of the data. And what that means is, if you are a low volume firm, if you are a solo, that you can't detect a pattern.
I think that's true for media management, but even with it's still a problem at really small numbers. You're not going to get like statistically significant mathematical like insights and analysis, but even just like clumping frequently asked questions together and just seeing stuff like that, I think the AI can help with that. Even deploying it against like CR. I mean, look, data scarcity is a thing. There's no question about it. But I think sometimes we think about like, okay, to get like to like 99% or 90% statistically significant like insights and analysis, that's a huge problem for small law firms. This is also one of the things that Conrad and I talk about is like, that's one of the advantages of working with a partner who actually has access to a larger set of data. Anyway, well, I'll let Conrad talk about that. But again, when you're taking data from different sources and you're cleaning it up and you're marrying that data, especially when you're talking front-end marketing data with back-end CRM data, there's still a data scarcity issue, but oftentimes you can aggregate enough to give the AI something to chew on. But anyway, that's my point of view. Conrad, go.
No, I mean, the analysis that AI can do is I think that's where this gets interesting. Like, the content development stuff is cute, problematic, and it doesn't really, it's not a game changer because everyone else has access to it.
Yeah.
Being able to analyze your data and figure out, you talked about your audience, right? Like, who is your audience? Why do we connect? You can use AI to do that. You can use, like, one of the best things that a high volume firm can do is do lead scoring. Is this a good lead or is it a bad lead? And my great leads are going to go to my best closers and my best attorneys, and my shitty leads are going to go to the worst ones, right? And that is an instant way to make more money without doing any more investment in marketing, right?
Yeah.
You can use AI to do lead scoring. You can use AI. We talk about this all the way. We have not said intake management yet, Gyi, so we're going to say that. You can use AI to score the quality of your intake staff, right? At the phone level, at the individual call level. And now you can pinpoint things where they've made a mistake or where they've done really well. You can have AI make that happen. And now you can become a better manager because you're sifting through a week's worth of phone calls and finding the 3 best ones and the 3 worst ones. And now we have something to talk about on Monday morning where we're going to do a better job this week, right?
Yep. And the other one too, because again, in this like audience identification stuff, because I think sometimes it gets lost when we get so stuck in like the ways we've always done it. But like, think about taking, the last 10 years, say you're a PI firm, you're doing motor vehicle accidents. Think about taking the last 10 years of crash data from your state police websites, public data you can get, and marrying that with, demographic information across the state, and marrying that with maybe your average position for your Google business profile, thinking about opening new offices. Like, to me, those kind of cases are the ways that like AI just beats us. Because think about what we would do. We can take that stuff, we can put it in a spreadsheet, we can do pivot tables, we can try to mash it up. AI is going to crush us in that context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that because it kind of gets out of, that's something more than what people would normally do. Like a regular sort of firm isn't going to go and start to analyze those things because really they wouldn't create the pivot tables. They just wouldn't do it.
Right. They're gonna be a spreadsheet. What?
Yeah. I didn't learn math. That's not.
But
that's not
those are the firms that in the last 3 or 4 years, the firms that figured out the spreadsheet, right, really used that type of data and the analysis on that data. Those are the firms that are winning today, right? And it wasn't AI generated. It was data nerds and MBAs and analytical people. But those were the firms that I will say the last 4 years, maybe even 5 years, those were the firms that are now at the forefront. I'll use one example that Gyi and I always sat on a stage with. What's the doggy one? It's not lead dog. It's top big dog. Top dog. Big dog, lead dog, top dog. Top dog, right? They went from nothing to a massive franchise model based on spreadsheets, right? How can we take that skill and put it in more people's hands, right? And then this becomes another race to get smarterer. But the getting smarterer with AI and having AI do the getting smarterer part for you, that's magic.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Is like this is where this is really transformational. Is that it democratizes access to research, data analysis. We're seeing in the context of coding, like you don't have to have all of those different skills in order to take advantage of what the AI can do for your business. And really, we're talking about marketing because we're marketing people, but across the board, operationally, service delivery, audience identification, all this stuff.
Well, I think one of the important things that's kind of coming out of what y'all are saying here, and we can kind of take it all the way back even to trying to figure out where my leads came from. And you're saying if you have essentially if you have one UTM that you put on every link that you have out there, you're figuring out that something came from the internet, but you're not figuring out where it came specifically. And artificial intelligence can help us get into that. It's the value of the data, of the granular data. And I know a lot of attorneys who they don't track this information because they don't see the value in tracking this information. Where did you come from? Who referred you? I don't see the value in that because I just know that Pete down the street refers some stuff to me. We have lower volume, and so I don't need to track it. Well, it seems like if you start tracking, you can use this. I mean, Gyi, Conrad, y'all came up with a ton of different ways to use just the data about my company, about my clients, my potential clients, the world around me, to make informed decisions about my company and my marketing. And so, it makes that data capture more important.
100%. And I, because we've heard those stories too. And I'll tell you some other common ones for listeners who maybe these stories will resonate if they're rolling your eyes about all this data stuff. And I can't tell you how many times someone makes a strategic decision in their firm about investing in nurturing a referral relationship or buying media or where to open an office that is based on nothing. It's just based on what you just said. It's like a gut instinct. And these over and over again, we see just poor decisions made based on gut instincts. And again, we talk about this on the podcast all the time. You're the go-to person in your community. You're not trying to grow your firm. You're happy. Maybe you're, towards the end of your career. You can have a very successful law practice without any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, you are playing with your hands tied behind your back, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see the impact of that, your gut instinct was so vastly wrong, and you were about to go invest a bunch of time and money doing things that actually doesn't have any value for really anything. That's when you're like, okay, I can never go back. I've got to capture this data. I've got to get it cleaned. I've got to deploy it on my business.
The ability to do analysis at this point in time, like that is the differentiator between the firms that are winning today, and they've been doing this for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and the ones that aren't. AI is just going to make that a little bit easier. You were talking, Zach, about attribution modeling. Gyi and I talk all the time about dual source attribution modeling. There's the direct response stuff, which is the linear pay-per-click and LSA and some SEO stuff. And then there's all the other stuff, all the other things, right? And because it is all the other things, and it is often many things to an individual client, I called you because of these 27 different reasons. Using AI to capture 27 reasons and knowing that and putting that all together and understanding a map that these 27 different touch points were actually all effective. Like, that's amazing.
You're absolutely right. And that's sometimes you have those moments where it's like the glass breaks and you're like, holy crap. Capturing multi-source attribution actually means something. If you can start to, like, I can't look at a spreadsheet and go, oh shit, there's a pattern there. But I could, operationalize artificial intelligence to potentially find a pattern or find something that looks a lot like a pattern to that. Even if I have 12 potential sources, how did you find out about me? Well, your podcast, your
That's
website,
right.
your book, your, great. Of those things. Okay,
That's
great.
right.
Those are all helpful information. And I had never thought of that. The value.
So that is to me, and it's hard to do that. And then it's hard to do the analysis behind it because it's super, super messy. And one of the things that Gyi and I have talked about is this isn't less attribution modeling. It's more, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to solve this question with more attribution modeling. And when you try, and this is the difference between spreadsheets and AI. In a spreadsheet, you came from one of these 7 different things.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was 3 of these 7 different things. But I'm already defining the things are, because if I don't define what the things are, I can't draw a pretty graph because I'm an MBA, and that's how we validate whether or not you should keep spending money with your agency, right?
Right.
It doesn't work. Things don't slot into those 7 different options or 10 different options or whatever it might be. It is a whole panoply of things that you might not even think about. And that's where you can go from kind of definitive but flawed spreadsheets to comprehensive, messy, but much more accurate understanding through AI. That's the fundamental shift in what can now be analyzed.
And let me give you another one, because again, if you do the capture right, and there's another whole issue here, which is garbage in, garbage out, but you have clean data that you're working with, and you're including firm financial data. Imagine the power of being able to be like, hey, give me my most profitable referral sources over the last 36 months.
Yeah.
Just like that. You don't need a spreadsheet. You don't need to do formulas. You don't need to do VLOOKUPs. You can converse with your data.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And like you're saying, we're talking about capturing things in multi-line text fields, for, lack of a better way of really saying it, as opposed to even multi-choice fields, because we're not limiting what people are saying, because quite honestly, we might find that people found out about us from a totally totally different place than what we thought. I found out the other day that we have a video embedded on some like outdoor magazine website. And it is a video that does it. It's Marshall Lichty teaching people to tie his shoes. It goes gangbusters on YouTube because it's posted, like it's embedded on this outdoor thing. I would have thought of that.
Right.
Never would have thought that somebody would have seen that.
I'm going to give you a very
what you're
relevant
gonna say.
to this podcast conversation. In my CRM the other day, someone's like, I've been listening to Gyi since he used to write for Lawyerist. And the quantitative attribution in the CRM said Google CPC because they searched on my name, got a branded ad, clicked on the ad, and then filled out the open-ended, open field text box on our website. And, again, I would have never made that connection. I would have been like, someone's got my name somehow, but I would have never known that it's from that.
There's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of kind of like little points that I think would have piqued a lot of people's interests. What would you guys, though, in this world of artificial intelligence, searching and creation and whatnot, give us something that somebody could, like, what would you say to somebody today that they could take away? What do they need to do for their marketing?
Stand out. I mean, that's why I'm like, plus que change, plus c'est la même chose. I'm not a huge French file, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. The legal services consumers change, their behavior changes, the platforms changes, how they research and consume information changes. But at the end of the day, marketing is still about standing out and finding ways for more people to know about you and, more importantly, like and trust you. And whatever you can do, whether that's producing a video, whether you're doing it with AI or not, whether it's writing, whether it's podcasting, whether it's attending local community events, doing more things that get your name in front of people in a way that they trust and like you, that's what you should spend most of your time doing.
Okay.
So I'll give you digitally tactical elements to think about. I believe that this, in order to get included in some of those AI overviews, right? So super, super tactical. I believe this goes back to a very old concept from Google called authorship. It was reinforced by this concept called EAT. Both of those things are kind of annoying, but I would go back and research how authorship happened. And what the key to authorship was tying content to an individual or an individual firm through a web of connections. So LinkedIn, Facebook, all tied to this piece of content that's tied to this website, that's tied to this individual person, right? That's kind of the authorship, and it's the foundation of what Google called EAT.
Okay.
So I would dig deep into that. The other component to this, and Gyi teased this earlier, but never told the punchline, is the directories, right? I think the directories, I think AI has saved the directories because they've become that much more relevant. And I would continue to think about the directories that you play in and having a presence there. And Gyi's going to disagree because I saw him pull his microphone closer to him. So he's going to last word this. Watch this.
I'm not going to disagree. I think that's right. I still think, tactically, I think it's worth researching. We talked about this on our podcast the other day. You have to be a part of the training data to show up in any of these things. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as showing up in Google. If you're not there, if Google doesn't have pages and video content, and if social platforms don't have content, that's the fuel. And so however you're creating that stuff, you've got to be, I think it's worthwhile to be a little bit mindful about, the message, what you're talking about, where you're publishing. But at the end of the day, for so many lawyers, because I know, a lot of lawyers, they're like, I practice in law. I don't have time for all this AI stuff. Like, what should I be doing to survive the future? And I would carve out a little bit of time every single day to put something into the world that differentiates you, that talks about what you're interested in your community, that's supporting the local community. Even if you're a local community lawyer, that's the stuff that's still going to win the day. Because when the next person sees that, forget about clicks, forget about likes, forget about all that stuff. You're going to stick in their brain. And that's the most important place to be, because that's what they're going to use when they are like, who do I know that can help me through this, difficult life legal situation that I'm in?
Love it. Love it. Well, Gyi, Conrad, I really appreciate y'all sharing your advice and thoughts on all of this. Yeah, and if anybody wants to, like I've said a couple of times, because I go to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing to watch videos and learn things. If anybody wants to learn more, they can always go to y'all's YouTube channel or the podcast places that people get them, and it's Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. Guys, thanks for being with me.
Zach, thanks so much. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Money makes a it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round.